Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Dobbs, and this is my project, and it's my call to action. I'm trying to expand end of life options and access to patients. First, we're going to go ahead and start off with the problem. The problem is pretty deep rooted in medicine and nursing. One thing that we all can understand is that in the healthcare field in medicine that we have always felt compelled to extend life by all means necessary. I'm pretty sure every single one of us can attest to this where we've seen a patient who is not doing well and they are kind of circling the drain, and we put these people through a ton of treatments, surgeries, medicines, all kinds of things to be able to extend their life. My call to action is to extend end of life options for patients. A number of states already, such as California, Oregon, Vermont, Washington, Hawaii, and Colorado, have end of life options where people can take their own path out of life. Sometimes this has been called physician assisted suicide. And basically, what I believe is that this option should be expanded to APRNs and that they should be able to prescribe these medications for assisted suicide because I believe that currently there are not enough providers who are willing to do this. And so by expanding it to APRNs, we will substantially increase the amount of providers that are able to do this and somewhat uplift the community. The solution. As I discussed, I believe the solution is expanding the access to end of life options via allowing APRNs to assist with end of life options. Some barriers to enhancing end of life options can be fiercely held beliefs by the public's religious entities, or they can be as simple as a close relationship between a practitioner and his or her patients. From this, practitioners reported they avoid talking to their patients about end of life options because of uncertainty regarding their potential ability to cope with assisting a patient who wants to end their own life due to terminal illness. In certain settings, this is completely understandable because this is a very difficult subject to bring up. However, it does not mean that it should not be brought up. This is something that's very important, and we need to uplift our APRNs to get them to a point to where they are comfortable having these discussions. Just because the conversation can get a little messy doesn't mean that it should not be had. The solution that I have is to educate providers on end of life options and assist them in developing this self-confidence where they can have these really tough conversations with their patients who are close to the end of their life. It is a practitioner's moral obligation and ethical duty to provide care that aligns with the patient's religious beliefs and moral values. And so, if a patient is having a terrible quality of life and they have not much longer to live, it is our duty to ask them and to figure out whether or not continuing on with their life is something that they want to do. That is our duty as providers, and we need to respect these people regardless of how we feel. And if they want to terminate their life on their own terms when they've been given a terminal illness, well, then I personally think that we should honor that. A conflict with this solution. A lot of people do not believe that end of life wishes should be kind of honored and that we should extend these people's lives until their very last day. Denying end of life options, including the ability to end one's own life, disregards the very facets of our practice. And that just goes right back to what I was saying. We need to respect these people and what they want. I think another component of this conflict is a financial component, right? Um, the elderly pay a lot of money for healthcare towards the end of their life. And I believe that some of this conflict that's like behind the scenes that we can't really see regarding end of life options has to do with the fact that various entities will be making less money if the elderly population ends their life early. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the benefits. So the benefits, a multitude of benefits would be observed by increasing provider knowledge regarding end-of-life options. The primary goal is educating providers would be to increase patient access to high quality end-of-life care. Basically, what I believe is that we should be educating providers on these discussions in nursing school and APRN school. Like I said earlier, these are kind of messy discussions, and if you really haven't seen a pro, a already licensed NP or professional, if you haven't seen somebody have this conversation, well, it can be pretty difficult to develop your own template for these types of things. So what we want to do is to educate providers on how to have these conversations. Remember that it's the practitioner's duty to ensure the patient's quality of life is high, to alleviate pain and suffering, and to provide emotional support to patients and their families. And so, if we cannot have these conversations, then we are not doing this. So, here is my actual call to action. Here's my call to action. To better educate our patients, we must first better educate our practitioners. My call to action is to make nurse practitioners take some form of an informative symposium or seminar led by palliative or critical care practitioners. This end of life options symposium would cover legal and ethical issues, practice guidelines, and scope of practice laws and concerns. Target population for the seminar would be healthcare providers, and included in the seminar would be referrals for practitioners to ethical and emotional counseling. There's always the potential that the reason why providers are not having these conversations is because it disturbs them and because it affects them emotionally. And if that's the case, well, then we need to uplift our providers, not just in education, but in emotional regulation and almost like emotional confidence to be able to have these conversations and be able to put down that conversation at the end of the day when they go home. As stated earlier, my call to action is not just education for APRNs. Another facet of my call to action is to create more laws that will assist APRNs in prescribing aid in dying medications. So, for instance, Colorado has this statute in place. However, there are many other states that do not have end of life options for APRNs. And then there are many other states that just don't have end of life options at all. So, the first steps towards providing whole person, patient centered care during the end of life transition can be as simple as asking your patients what they know about their end of life options. Here are just a couple organizations that are kind of on the forefront of um, aid in dying type legislation. There's the American Association of College of Nursing Education, the AAC&E. The American Association of Critical Care Nurses also helps nurses who are at the forefront of end-of-life care. These organizations serve as a part of a comprehensive team to fulfill the mission of advanced care end-of-life options. And providers should utilize them whenever possible. Summary. Information. Healthcare providers have a duty to their patients to provide adequate, current, and compassionate whole person care. This care is to be equitable, accessible, and it should support their lifelong healthcare journey. The literature demonstrates a deficit in our providers' ability to communicate effectively with patients regarding end of life care options. Our providers need lifted up and they need more education regarding this stuff. Enhancing end of life care and options, healthcare providers need to breach difficult topics and support our patients in their decision making process with information that is honest and unbiased. I think we can all get on board with this. We all want our providers to be on our team and you want them to be unbiased. Partnering with organizations to include end of life education supports our healthcare workers in their efforts to provide exceptional end of life care. As required in the rubric, here is my actual call to action letter. I wrote mine to the American Association of Colleges of Nursing. References. And lastly, here are my references. There are some that are outside of the 5-year mark, and I believe I use them because a lot of these are like pretty necessary. For instance, the American Nurses Association Code of Ethics was last written in 2015. The scope of practice was 2015. So there were a few that were over the 5-year limit. However, I believe that these are set in the works. Thank you all for your time, and I really appreciate you. Have a great day. Bye.